In Diablo 2, some of the strongest items you'll get access to are player-made, so today we're going to take a look at the more common uses of runewords, shields. One nice thing about these runewords is there really isn't a single one that doesn't have a use. Some are definitely more niche, but others are just blatantly insanely strong, so we'll give them a loose ranking from worst to best shield runeword, but do remember there will be at least a couple cases that have a use for each of these. At the bottom of the list, we have two runewords put here simply for cost versus benefit. First up, we have a dragon, costing 2 high runes with Sur, Low, and Soul. This shield is very thematically accurate, but only used in extremely rare cases, mostly thanks to its mediocre perks. Really only seeing use for its strange mix of chance to cast effects and holy fire, the former which allows some funny little tricks, the latter which can be stacked with other holy fire sources for a holy fire Oradin. The problem is, even at high levels, the Holy Fire Oradin and Holy Fire Sorceress as well tend to do very little damage for the investment, especially compared to the Dream counterpart, and the Dream counterpart has way better mods and less used slots. Next up is Phoenix, a runeword I adore, but due to its cost compared to the number of builds that actually find it useful, it does take a hit. Using 4 high runes, Vex, Vex, Low, and Jaw, it is a beast of a runeword to get made and needs to compete with the plethora of other useful runewords that those expensive runes kind of go into. That said, on the builds it is used on, it does a lot of work, with a free redemption aura, high-level firestorm on striking, reduced enemy fire resist, a whopping 350 to 400% enhanced damage that applies at the aura stage since this is a shield, and a handful of other decent mods. It's not quite a lightweight, though it is still a little dragged down by Firestorm Interrupt for some builds. It does still do a ton of work. I just wish it wasn't quite so expensive, or if it wanted to be so expensive, it did it with less in-demand runes. I wouldn't even mind a Zod. In the middle of the pack, we have 4 runewords that honestly just mix it up based on your resources. Once you get to a decent mid-rune supply, these first 2 will move up in rank, but early on they move down due to cost. The first one being Sanctuary, made with Ko, and Mal, is extremely solid basic resistance runeword that can be used in a decent number of light shields with 50 to 70 resist, decent defense, and dexterity boosts. It's got improved blocking, hit recovery, and a few other mods as well. It's just generally good. And it's also a pretty good, much a straight upgrade from the cheaper Ancient's Pledge we'll get to later. The other mid-cost option is Splendor, made with Eth and Lum. It is actually a good candidate for a lot of lighter weight shields options, and even Necro Head, since it gives +1 all skills, faster cast, block, energy magic, gold find. It helps a bit with mana, and it's all in a 2-socket package. While fairly mundane at first glance, it can be fairly decent. Its major drawback, though, is the lack of resist, which can turn people off, since shields are often used as one of the major sources of resists. So you'll be a bit more reliant on charms and other accessory slots to cover this gap. That said, you can't really beat some of the low strength options for this little +1 shield, so it is still definitely high on the list. In the economy slots, we have Ancient's Pledge, the Poor Man's Sanctuary, still giving reasonable resist and a pinch and fence. It's otherwise fairly mundane, but it is good to keep around for early on just for easy resists on new characters. This is especially affordable since the runes necessary for it, Ral, Ort, and Tal, are given to you as a quest reward for rescuing barbarians in Act 5, which means the shield requires practically 0 farming if you keep your eyes peeled for a 3-socket shield early. The other economy slot shield is Rime. This is the unskilled parallel to Splendor. With magic and gold find, blocking boost, mana regen, it replaces the other mods with resistances and cannot be frozen. And for a number of builds can be argued to be better than Splendor, but Splendor does still win for casters. Rime is also super cheap, requiring only Shale and Eth, both easily farmable in late normal and early nightmare without even really trying. Rounding out the last 3, we have a selection of shields that are a staple to pretty much every veteran player and are really hard to really rank between each other due to their individual functions, so we'll just list them off. First, we'll look at Exile, the only class-specific runeword on this list requiring explicitly Paladin shields only. Exile uses Vex, Ist, and Dole to provide some extremely powerful bonuses. Decent level Defiance, Life Tap on striking, a boost to offensive auras, Magic Find, Auto Repair, Freeze Target, and a few other odds and ends. This becomes especially powerful when you realize the auto mods on Paladin shields cover the gaps in this, either providing natural resistances with 1 set of auto mods, or providing damage and attack rating if you go with the offensive auto mods. Most often placed in ethereal or even historically e-bugged paladin shields for further amplifying this effect, Exile is a staple of endgame smiter builds especially, but can be used in other paladin builds quite effectively. Next is Dream, also fairly expensive with IO, Jaw, and Pull. This is the counterpart to the Dream helmet, and is often paired with it to stack their Holy Shock auras on a few specific builds. The shield also gets renowned for its ability to boost several non-paladin and non-sorceress builds fairly effectively with the extra damage it provides, as well as the other mods like resist, life, mana, defense, as well as magic find and hit recovery. Usually higher priority than the helmet version due to its wider array of builds that use its abilities, though in the end it is still best known for its use in the Dream or Tesla builds. And lastly, we have one of the most used shield in the game, that's Spirit. Tal, Thol, Ort, and Am, being extremely cheap to get, though slightly restricted since for non-paladins the lightest shield that can pack all 4 runes in is the Hell difficulty Monarch shield. It's still extremely common, being used on popular builds for almost every class, with the exception of maybe a Barbarian, but there are builds there that use it as well. It's got a whopping +2 skills, faster hit recovery, higher faster cast rate, life, mana, and on the shield, even resists. It makes the shield pretty much every base except for magic find. So yeah, that's easy enough to get elsewhere. It may be used in post-game for most classes, but will usually be seen as early as Nightmare for Hammerdin, since Paladin shields can spawn even at low-strength versions with the necessary 4 sockets. Do you have a favorite version of these shields? Do you ever make them in something other than light shields? Why or why not? Mention it down below.